Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Kyle Henderson along with Andrew Bone talking about the top class of 2022 prospects from the state of Alabama here with Andrew Bone to break it all down. We'll jump right into it. But before we do, definitely hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe. We appreciate you more than you know. Inching closer to 50,000 subscribers right here on Bama Insider on our YouTube channel. Bone, I have the list here. Some of the top players in the state of Alabama. Let's start with the top. Jeremiah Alexander. He was committed to Alabama for a little bit. Let's kind of get an update on the four-star weak side defensive end.
Yeah, Jeremiah Alexander, the number one player in the state, for next year's recruiting class, committed early to Alabama, committed last spring, and I think not being able to take any visits, go to any summer camps, really go to any games during the fall, he decided he wanted to take a step back, see if he can enjoy the recruiting process. And as we, just recently saw, the NCAA is going to be extending the dead period until the end of May. So no spring visits unless he wants to go, over to campuses just on his own and check the campus out. Can't see the facilities or visit with the coaches, but still can do that. And I think he just wanted to, like I said, take a step back, see if he can enjoy the recruiting process, be recruited, because he is the number one player in the state of Alabama, and he's one of the best overall players in the country. So a lot of schools, a lot of top programs want him as a part of their, as a part of their school. So we'll see what happens. But as of right now, I know he came out with a kind of a top group here recently, but this is an Alabama-Georgia recruiting battle, in my opinion. I don't think there's really anything else to it. I think it's Alabama or Georgia. He grew up an Alabama fan, committed early to Alabama, and obviously they're still coming after him pretty heavily. But I think one of the main reasons for him decommitting was his relationship with Georgia. I think he had a really, really close relationship with the coaching staff there. Talks to Kirby Smart pretty often, so there's a pretty good connection there. And I think if he ends up leaving the state, it's going to be for Georgia. But it's always tough to leave the state of Alabama. Obviously, there's been some kids in the past that have left, not many. And Georgia's been able to benefit. Georgia landed George Pickens and Clay Webb a couple of years ago, but really ever since then, Alabama's done a good job of really securing the state. Signed 8 players. I think it was 8 of the top 11 from Alabama in 2020, and then only signed 5 from Alabama in 2021. But that included the number 1 and number 2 player in the state, of JaQuincy McKinstry and Deontay Lawson. Of course, when you sign 7 from the state of Texas and 7 from the state of Florida, the numbers aren't going to be too high in the state of Alabama when you're looking all over the country. But I certainly think that this is certainly another class that Alabama's offered several in-state players already. I think the numbers are already at 10 in-state kids for 2022, and Jeremiah Alexander is certainly one of their prime targets, and they'd love to get him back. I know that he's continued to have conversations with Alabama, with Nick Saban. So Alabama still hopes to get him back on board. And a lot of people see a kid who may decommit, and there's no chance of him coming back into the class. Alabama's been fortunate over the course of the last few years to be able to bring those guys back in. Evan Neal and Trey Sanders were 2 out-of-state kids who committed very early. Many people probably forgot about that. Committed early to Alabama, backed off their decisions, and then during the early signing period ends up committing to Alabama. We saw that with Xavier McKinney. Saw that with Reuben Foster. I mean, that's probably the most famous, the kid who committed to Auburn, and then ended up back in Alabama's class with the Auburn tattoo and all. So things like that happen all the time. So we'll see what happens with Jeremiah Alexander over the course of the next few months. He does, he is saying that he wants to stretch it out. He wants to, enjoy the process, take visits, and, be a little bit more patient this time, because this 2022 class, they just haven't been able to go out on the road and see a lot of schools and be recruited. And a lot of these kids that have been recruited by certain programs, they may have assistant coaches who have left. They may have position coaches, coordinators, area recruiting coaches who may no longer be there. Of course, you always want the kids to commit to the school and not to an assistant coach. But a lot of times, they just want to develop that relationship and be comfortable, with the program that they're going to.
Here with Andrew Bone of BamaInsider.com. We're talking the top class of 2022 prospects from the state of Alabama, leading off with Jeremiah Alexander, who was at one point committed to Alabama. Let's go ahead and move down this list. We'll talk about several prospects within these Rivals.com rankings. Remember, hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe. We appreciate you more than you know. Khurtiss Perry out of Montgomery, defensive tackle. It's always important to get defensive tackles on board, as we talk about every single season. What's the latest on Khurtiss Perry, 6'2", 268-pound 4-star out of Montgomery?
Yeah, there's a couple of really good in-state defensive linemen in this year's class, and one is Khurtiss Perry and one is Justice Finkley. And I think both of those guys have Alabama very high on their list right now. But at the same time, I think they're both kind of being patient. They're both kind of just taking a wait and see approach, letting the recruiting process play out. We may not see a decision from either one of those guys for a while. We may see it dragged out until after the summer, maybe even after the football season, because once again, these kids just want to visit. With Khurtiss Perry, very aggressive, very high motor type kid. Had a lot of tackles. I think he had close to about 150 tackles during his junior season. That's playing the defensive tackle position. So very aggressive kid. Certainly somebody that Alabama would love to add. He's 6'2", about 265, 270 pounds, and him and Justice Finkley kind of similar. I think Finkley a little bit more stout, little stronger at the point of attack, but these are two guys that that are both in-state defensive linemen. I think defensive line is going to be another big position for Alabama in this class, and they have two guys in the state that they can potentially close with Khurtiss Perry and Justice Finkley.
With Andrew Bone, as we continue to kind of cruise down this list of the top class of 22 prospects out of the state of Alabama, Emmanuel Henderson, a very talented running back that is set to make an announcement here pretty soon. I believe sometime in March. Alabama has running backs on running backs right now, and just recently added Kamar Wheaton on signing day. But as you turn the page to the class of 2022, it looks like Henderson, could definitely in the mix for Alabama. What's the latest?
Yeah, very athletic running back. Can really play just about any position, any skill position. You can line him up at running back. You can probably line him up at receiver. Line him up in the defensive backfield, and he's going to have some success. He's also a very talented basketball player. I don't think he plans on playing basketball in college, but Alabama is certainly recruiting him to play football, and I think they're planning on playing him at running back. I think that that's been really the main conversations that he's had with Alabama. I know that there's some expectation that he could potentially move to the defensive side of the ball, but I think that's all kind of a wait and see approach right now. The same was said about T.J. Yeldon during his junior season, that he was going to be a defensive player, potentially a wide receiver, and we saw him obviously have a lot of success at the running back positions, and still is in the NFL. So this is a kid that I think can play running back at the college level and play at Alabama, and have a lot of success. He's got great speed, kind of a home run hitter, great vision, and I think he needs to bulk up a little bit more, get up a little bit thicker, a little bit more stronger. That will come. There's no reason to really worry about that. But I think with his skill set, he's certainly somebody that Alabama would love to add, and he's announcing that decision on March the 13th. Alabama, Auburn, Georgia. I know Clemson's in the mix. Florida's been in the mix. But at the end, I think he ends up staying in state. I like Alabama here. I think Alabama's got a great chance, even though they just came off of a recruiting class with the number one running back in the country. Same time, they still only signed one. They want to get a couple in this year's class, and getting somebody like Emmanuel Henderson, it's also an in-state kid, would be a big plus for Alabama, going into the spring.
As we continue to highlight some of these prospects from the class of 2022 out of the state of Alabama, remember to hit the thumbs up, like, and to subscribe. Alabama has Robert Woodyard out of Mobile, Alabama, who is a current committed prospect. Give us a little bit of detail on the type of player that he is. I see right here he's been recruited by Sal Sinceri. I think he had an injury. So kind of what's the latest on Robert Woodyard, who's one of these members currently of the class of 2022?
Yeah, hadn't really played a lot. Was injured during his freshman year. Only played in a few games during his sophomore year. So this past season was really his first, full season just being healthy, and had a great year. I think he had, over 110 tackles on the season, and also played a little bit of offense, running the ball. So, this is an extremely athletic linebacker, physical kid that, like you mentioned, it was recruited by South Siri, committed early in the process, and is also a solid commitment. I mean, this is a kid who's not really looking at any other schools. When he got that Alabama offer, I think he held on to it for a little bit before he made that decision, but I think he knew, that's where he always wanted to go. So, it was a big early commitment for Alabama. Kind of I would have liked to seen him this spring, maybe at a camp, see him work out a little bit. Going up against some great competition. At Unfortunately, I don't think the rivals camps are happening this year because of COVID. But that would have been great to see him work out. Going up against other elite competition, because all we've kind of been going off of is his highlight films, and obviously that's been spectacular. From his junior season. But I would like to see him a little bit more. Kind of figure out is he 100% an inside linebacker? Could he potentially play outside? But we'll see. I think he's recruited mainly as an inside guy, and very solid commitment early on for Alabama.
All right, let's continue to go through this list of the top class of 2022 prospects from the state of Alabama. We talked about Vegans a little bit. You said there's not really a lot of recruitment there from Alabama, so we'll skip to Justice Finkley out of Trussville, Alabama. There's some big time talent out of Trussville, Alabama. I was actually working on a player spotlight on Malachi Moore from just a season ago. Plenty of talent in that area. What's the latest on a four-star defensive tackle in Justice Finkley?
Yeah, kind of the same with some of these other guys. Just just kind of taking a wait and see approach. Likes Alabama's, talking to Alabama quite often. I think as of right now, Freddie Roach, the defensive line coach, really starting to develop that relationship with Justice Finkley. And Freddie Roach, not only the defensive line coach, but the new area recruiter for the Birmingham area. So I think that's going to be huge, having Coach Roach, who's from Alabama, played at Alabama, be the guy in Alabama now. I think some people say it's pretty easy to recruit the state of Alabama if you're at the University of Alabama, but it's not. I mean, you got to recruit these guys, every single day, and because a program like Georgia or LSU or even Auburn can land these guys. And, Auburn's always the toughest in-state competition, and probably the toughest competition for most of these guys. But a lot of these top programs throughout the country, they come into Alabama because there's a lot of elite talent in this state, and there always is. And Georgia, Florida, LSU, those are all out-of-state programs. Tennessee, that have always done well recruiting Alabama. So I think Coach Roach is a good fit to recruit the Birmingham area for Alabama. Obviously you have Coach South Siri, recruiting down in South Alabama. You have Charles Kelly, who's recruiting the Birmingham area. So you got some great coaches recruiting Alabama, and I think with Coach Roach and building these relationships with guys like Justice Finkley, Khurtiss Perry, I think it should help Alabama out here in the long run.
Moving on in the class of 22 from the state of Alabama, definitely give us a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. We appreciate you more than you know. We'll talk about TJ Dudley next, outside linebacker out of Montgomery, Alabama. What's the latest on another prospect out of Montgomery? Seems like there's a lot of guys kind of out of the Montgomery area this year in class of 2022, but what's the latest on Dudley?
Yeah, very good in-state linebacker. Like I said, from Montgomery Catholic, has been recruited by Alabama for a while. And there was some thought that he might commit, here pretty soon. I don't think he's going to commit just yet. I think he's going to stretch it out a little bit longer. It looks like it's a two-team race between Alabama and Clemson. Obviously, Alabama's been showing a lot of interest here lately, but at the same time, you got to think Alabama is just coming off two back-to-back, linebacker classes that were considered the best linebacker classes in the country in back-to-back years. Alabama already has one linebacker commitment in Robert Woodyard. I don't think they're going to take a bunch of linebackers in this class. Maybe three. That may be the number. 3 linebackers in this class. It might get to 4, but I think 3 is probably the number they're working with, and trying to make sure they're making the right decisions. I mean, obviously TJ Dudley, great player, in-state kid, but what happens with maybe some of these other guys that they're recruiting from out of state. Obviously Alabama, recruits extremely well out of state in every single class, and I think they're going to continue to evaluate. You got some guys that obviously you got some new coaches on the staff who want to evaluate some kids and make sure they're making the right decisions as well. So I think as of right now, I would just say that he's probably just kind of a wait and see approach with T.J. Dudley in terms of his decision time frame. I think he's probably going to wait maybe a month or two, maybe into the spring. It could stretch out into the summer. We just never know. I know a lot of these kids were really hoping to to take some visits this spring. Obviously, that's not going to happen. So will that push their decision time frame up more, or will it stretch it out more? We just don't know for sure. But as of right now, it looks like TJ is probably going to wait a little bit longer before he makes that decision.
All right, let's continue to cruise through this list of the class of 22 from the state of Alabama. I think we are now on Shamar James, another athlete from Mobile, Alabama. 6'3", 200 pounds. I mean, kind of the same detail. It's Robert Woodyard, committed from the area. The latest on Shamar James.
Yeah, I think he's certainly one of the top in-state players, in-state targets for Alabama. There was a couple players who received offers during the season. I know it may seem like every kid receives an offer during their junior season, but most of these guys were offered prior to their junior season. They were offered, back in the spring or back in the summer. A guy like Shamar James, Mari Kelly, these are 2 guys who received offers during their junior season, and it's because of the way that they performed. And Shamar James, star on both sides of the football. I think he's mainly recruited as a defensive player by Alabama and by most schools. He's 6'3". I think he's listed there at 200 pounds, but I think he's a little bit bigger. I think he's about 210 pounds right now. So could potentially play safety, could potentially be an outside linebacker, but certainly somebody that Alabama holds in high regard. I would not be surprised if he committed within the next few months, and I really think Alabama has the best chance to land his commitment.
All right, but a couple of the guys that I'd like to ask you about, and then I'll kind of open the floor for you a little bit as we look at this list. But let me ask you about Tanner Bailey, because I think everybody is kind of waiting on Ty Simpson. We've talked about Ty Simpson most recently. Definitely check out our interview. Andrew Bone caught up with his father, Jason Simpson. Very good details. So definitely go check that out on Bama Insider or right here on our YouTube channel. Tanner Bailey, I think he was offered from Alabama quite some time ago. And, 6'1", 195 pounds, very talented quarterback out of Gordo, Alabama. How are you feeling about, Tanner Bailey and what type of player is he? And like we've talked about, we're waiting on Ty Simpson, but give us some information on Tanner Bailey.
Well, I think Tanner's a great quarterback, great in-state player. Certainly somebody that a lot of programs want. He's been heavily recruited. I know, prior to Coach Sark leaving and becoming the head coach of Texas, he had a great relationship with Tanner. Talked to him quite often, and Tanner was somebody who's visited Tuscaloosa, several times. I grew up in an Auburn household, but he said that's not really going to affect his decision or his recruitment. He's a kid, like I said, who's visited Alabama several times. Gordo, hop, skip, and a jump away from Tuscaloosa. So been to Alabama quite often, and I know he loves the campus, loves the program. But like I said, I think everybody's kind of waiting to see what Ty Simpson is going to do. Next week is going to be announcing that decision on February the 26th. And I don't know if Alabama's going to take 2 quarterbacks this year. May just take 1. A lot's going to depend on the overall numbers. But as of right now, the focus is on at least getting 1 guy. And Tanner doesn't have a commitment set, but Ty Simpson does. So Ty Simpson's going to announce that decision next week between Alabama, Clemson. I know Tennessee's in it, some other schools, but I do think it's between Alabama and Clemson. So we'll see what happens with Ty, and then see if Alabama really makes a full court press. Either way, even if Simpson commits to Alabama, will they continue to really press for Tanner Bailey in this class? We'll have to wait and see.
All right, but I kind of just wanted to open up the floor, and then I have a couple additional questions. Anyone else you want to mention kind of here within, and these rankings are compiled by Rivals.com. If you want to just kind of mention, there's Lucas Taylor up at the top and kind of down there to Caden Story. I think Riley Quick related to Pierce Quick, and then Caden Story related to Christian Story. If you could just kind of hit on those guys as we move to our next topic.
Yeah, Amari Kelly, one of the best wide receivers in Alabama, in the Southeast, really kind of blew up during his junior season. I know he had over 700 yards receiving, and is one of these kids who picked up an offer during the season. And Alabama's wide receiver class not going to be big this year. It's going to be pretty small after signing 4 Rivals 100 receivers back in December. I would say they're probably going to sign anywhere between 2 and 3 receivers in this class, and Amari Kelly is certainly somebody that they want to add, and I think they have a great chance to land him. Maybe Alabama. I know he's not listed on this page right now, but Kobe Albert from Fairfield High School just got a 4-star ranking on Rivals. He's certainly somebody that could potentially get an offer from Alabama down the road. I know his offer list has been blowing up. Auburn, Georgia have offered him here pretty recently, but he's certainly a good kid that I could see getting an offer from Alabama in the next few months. Antonio Kite from Anniston High School as a defensive back, who also received an offer from Alabama during his junior season. Didn't play as a sophomore, freshman. Has been a basketball star for Anniston. Also has an Alabama offer in basketball, but Alabama really likes him as a defensive back, really going after him pretty hard. But there's all, like I mentioned about Kobe Albert, there's some kids in the state that I think Alabama wants to see a little bit more, before they kind of go all in on Riley Quick, being Pierce Quick's younger brother, also a baseball star. A lot of people think he will potentially end up playing baseball in college, rather than football. So plays the offensive line, plays a little bit of defensive line as well. And not as big as Pierce, 6'5", 255 pounds. Pierce was about 285 coming out of high school, but certainly somebody that I think Alabama's interested in. Will continue to watch. Kind of the same with Caden Story. Obviously, a little bit bigger than Christian. Christian being a 6'2", 205-pound athlete, and Caden being 6'4", 250-pound defensive end, has a lot of offers. But like I said, I think he's certainly somebody that Alabama would have loved to seen in camp. Hopefully, they're going to be able to see him in camp if schools are allowed to have camps this summer. Who knows what the NCAA is going to allow? But those are some of the guys that I think that Alabama is continuing to watch. I'm sure they'll watch some workout videos and stuff like that throughout the spring, kind of like what they did this past spring back in 2020 in this 2021 class. They'll do that a lot with this 2022 class as well.
Bone, I wanted to ask you about kind of the impact of the NCAA extending the dead period and how that you think that it'll affect Alabama recruiting. In my opinion, I think it is beneficial for Alabama. I know Alabama wants these guys to see them physically on campus, wants to see them work out, wants to see them in their camps, because I feel it provides better analysis for those coaches to get a better feel for those guys. But I also think that Alabama is able to continue to press on the Bama factor, meaning that they continue to send guys to the league. They continue to win the SEC. They just won a national championship. So how do you think kind of the impact of this dead period will affect just recruiting as a whole? And what's the kind of the good or bad of this?
Well, it's not going to affect Alabama too much. I mean, we saw that this past year. I mean, Alabama just signed the highest rated recruiting class of all time. So it just didn't affect Alabama that much. Now, there are some kids that, I feel like if they would have been able to visit Alabama again and take an official visit to with their families, then there's a chance that they could have gone to Alabama instead of going elsewhere. But at the same time, Alabama, I don't think Alabama fans are complaining too much about this recruiting class. I think it affects some of the smaller schools more than anything, because they don't get a chance to really see a lot of kids. They get a chance to see them not only at their camps, but a lot of these smaller schools also go to camps at Alabama and Georgia, Florida, to evaluate kids that Alabama or those other schools aren't going to be taking. So, it really hurts those kids a lot. Maybe there's going to be an opportunity for kids to be able to camp this summer. We don't know yet, but in terms of just going to different campuses, meeting with coaching staffs, trying to determine if this is going to be a program that's going to be in your top, not your top 15, because everybody has a top 15, but your top 3, top 5, schools that you're really going to focus on. It makes things a little bit more difficult. But what coaches have really done a good job of over the course of the last year is really, obviously the Zoom calls and just getting everybody involved, not just the coaching staff, but you also have the strength and conditioning staff, you have the medical staff, you have the training staff, you have academic support, who they're all doing Zoom calls with top recruits and their families throughout the country. They're getting these virtual tours of these different schools, and obviously I think Nick Saban has done a great job. Obviously not being able to see kids in person and sit down with them, but at the same time, junior days, you're kind of rushed in and out. You have 50 kids on campus. You're trying to meet with the majority of those kids. All right, let's go meet with Coach Saban for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, at max, and then you're bringing another kid in there. You're not really developing that relationship. It's just kind of like a meet and greet type thing. Nick Saban, along with a lot of other college coaches, are doing these Zoom calls with top recruits. They're doing 5, 6, 7 of them a day. At least, Nick Saban's doing 5, 6, 7 of them a day. At least I don't know what other schools are doing, but he's been able to sit down, speak with these guys, these kids, their families, via FaceTime for 45 minutes, an hour sometimes, and really develop that relationship, and continues to do it. And obviously, never really done that before. I know he's done it in the past, but it may be like once or twice a year, where he's doing a FaceTime call with with a recruit and their family. But now he's doing it, pretty often, and really developing a strong connection there with different recruits. And I think it's been very beneficial, and obviously was very beneficial in this 2021 class. And obviously we saw kind of what Nick Saban says to recruits when that video leaked a few weeks ago and went viral. I don't know if Nick Saban, the coaching staff, appreciated that going viral, but at the same time, I know that the kid who they were talking to didn't really have much to do with that. And I know that they're still heavily recruiting him, so nothing to really worry about there. But Nick Saban, from what I've been told, that's him. I mean, that's him in a nutshell. Anytime he talks to any recruits or their families, he's always selling the Alabama program. He's never bashing any other schools or talking down about any other schools. It's all about selling Alabama, and that's what he's about. And I don't think you're ever going to really catch him. I think everybody's always looking for something to post out there. Nick Saban said this about this coach, or said this about that program, and it's pretty hard to do. He just doesn't do that publicly. He may do it in private, but he certainly is never going to do it publicly to and bash any recruits or bash any programs to any recruits. So I thought it was great. I mean, I think most people that watched that video were blown away by it, just because he was just being honest. I mean, you go to Alabama because you want to compete against the absolute best players every single day. Obviously they can get you to the NFL, but I thought the biggest takeaway was when he mentioned Cam Robinson going up against Jonathan Allen every day at practice, and Marlon Humphrey going up against Amari Cooper every day at practice. Now you're selling, we just signed the best recruiting class supposedly of all time. You're going to be going, I'm going to recruit you because you're going to be going up against those players every single day at practice. And I think that's a big selling point to a lot of recruits these days.
Now, a lot of people don't know this, all right? And this is kind of this is the leaked video we're talking about. Now, the leaked video that made it to YouTube, okay? And I could have I thought about this, but the video was actually 17 minutes long, okay? The leaked video, whoever put it up, was 2 minutes long. I have the 17-minute video, okay? I ethically, I just couldn't put it on YouTube. I just didn't. I thought about it. I was like, should we go for YouTube fame, or is this ethical? And I was like, no, I'm just gonna watch it privately. But one of the things that he talked about, and we're gonna wrap up our show here, so definitely hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe. But he starts off and he was talking about, kind of just the access that Alabama has to even the physicians, right? The Dr. Kane, Dr. Andrews, their reach. And basically you're getting the same type of treatment that guys in the NFL are getting. And I think everybody knows that when you talk about the Bama factor and what Alabama is able to do and what Nick Saban's able to do and the reach that he has, why not Alabama? And this isn't, I'm not telling you, this isn't just Alabama, but I'm just saying it's an incredible flex every single year, what he's able to do. And I think a monster addition has been Dr. Matt Ray and David Ballou, what they've done from an injury prevention standpoint and the emphasis that they've added to that, the Sports and Science Center. I really want to dive into that and learn more because it seems like Tuscaloosa really has added on another element. And as you know, with those leak videos or whatever, Saban is the master of sidestepping the doo-doo. So not surprised at the GOAT, with the big flex. But, hey, I hope you guys have enjoyed this show. Definitely hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe. We appreciate you more than you know. Hey, Super Chats go a long way as well. A lot of moving parts. A Super Chat is basically like a tip. So go down in your comment box, look for the $sign. And also don't forget about our podcast, which is on Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. So go and search for the BamaInsider.com podcast. He's Andrew Bone. I'm Kyle Henderson. You can catch all our coverage back at BamaInsider.com. We appreciate you more than you know, inching closer to 50,000 subscribers right here on BamaInsider.com. Have a great rest of your weekend. We'll be back right here on BamaInsider.com.